You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
What a beautiful day for horses in the morning.
You are listening to the #1 horse podcast in the world. Here's your entertaining look at the horse world and the people in it.
Good morning, everybody. I am Glenn the Geek in Ocala, Florida.
And I am Allison Renborg in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And you are listening to the monthly Equine Affaire episode of Horses in the Morning on the Horse Radio Network for August the 15th. This episode is brought to you by Equine Affaire. Good morning, Horse World.
It's the third Thursday of the month. That means it's time for the Equine Affaire episode, North America's premier equine expo and equestrian gathering.
Well, it's so good to have you back, and it's so good to be talking about Equine Affaire again this month. It seems to roll around very quickly, Allison.
I agree. I'm not mentally ready for it to be August, but it is August, and we are
halfway through August,
months.
Actually. So.
Yeah, we are halfway through August.
Well, let's talk about today's show. We have a couple of legends from both sides of the coin.
I know, it's sort of English meets Western today. We have Tik Maynard, who, of course, is an English icon. He's an inventor. He's been on the show multiple times. Everybody knows Tik Maynard. And he also
Road
won
to the Horse last year.
Yes. Yeah. And I think they're bringing him back next year. I think I saw that announcement. Yes.
Okay. Great.
But before he goes back to Road to the Horse, he'll be at Equine Affaire, which, of course, is the point of the show.
Right.
So we're very excited. We've got Tik Maynard on the show today. He'll be presenting with us in Massachusetts. And then the Western side, we have Barbra Schulte, another legend. I mean, as I say to her in our interview, I've heard about her my entire career. I'm more Western leaning, and Barbara's just literally a legend. She is a legend in the cutting horse world. She's also a performance coach and a clinician, and she will be at Equine Affaire in Mass. So those are just two of the amazing legends who are coming this fall. It's going to be a pretty cool event.
Very good. Well, any news that we need to know about Equine Affaire before we get to Tik?
Yeah. So you guys remember from our last show, we talked about the app. So hopefully you've already gone and downloaded Western Edge app, because you can buy your tickets to Equine Affaire and Fantasia on there. You can also look at the schedule. You can enter the raffle, all that good stuff. But something that's coming soon, and why I want you to really go and download that app, is I have been working on a scavenger hunt, actually 2 scavenger hunts that we're going to put on the app. We're going to have a pre-event scavenger hunt, and then we'll have a scavenger hunt you can do at the event. And so it's cool things like taking a picture with your horse, for example, or taking a picture of your favorite horsey product and things like that. And you can submit those pictures for points. And then whoever gets the most points wins a prize. So we're going to do that kind of before the show as a fun thing. So it'll be things you can find around your barn. And then we'll do one at the show where you have to go all over the grounds and find some things. And so I just want you guys to be aware of that as our listeners, I've had way too much fun coming up with ideas for where to send people and what to have them do. And then we've got trivia and polls and all kinds of stuff. So that's sort of been the fun part of my job lately, is coming up with.
I love that idea.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So make sure you go download that app. And if you're confused about the Western Edge app process or anything like that, we've got posts on our Facebook about it. And you can find the logo and make sure you're downloading the right Western Edge app. Definitely do that. It's a fun time. I'm excited. I have been daydreaming about what we could do with an app for years practically. And so now it's finally here, and I get to do all kinds of crazy fun stuff. So that's the first big bit of news. And then the second reminder is just about applications. So if you want to ride at Equine Affaire this fall, if you want to compete, applications are due September the 6th. So that's just a few weeks away. So get your applications together. If you have questions or anything like that, you can post in the auditors group and I'll answer you, or you can just go to our website, equineaffaire.com. and find the applications there. And you can apply to Ride with a Pro, which means riding in a clinic, including, drum roll please, you can apply to ride with either Tik Maynard or Barbra Schulte. So like riding with a literal legend at Equine Affaire. Why wouldn't you apply?
Yeah, that sounds great. I know Tik is so good. I've seen him do clinics with riders, and he is so good at doing those clinics.
It's going to be awesome. And I think both of them are looking for multiple horses and riders. So you have multiple chances to maybe get selected. And the way that works is you fill out an application and you film a video of yourself riding, or if you have like a video of you at a show recently, something like, and you submit it, and then we send it over to our clinicians and they pick. And you don't have to be, I feel like this is important. You don't have to be like the best rider in your barn to get selected. Sometimes they're looking for those horses and riders who have issues, who are having trouble, picking up the right lead, or having trouble learning diagonals even. Diagonals, darn them. So don't feel like you're not good enough. I think is an important message I want to get across here. You may be exactly the problem child that they're looking for. So don't worry about it. Just go ahead and apply. You never know. And I think that it's just important for everybody to give yourself a shot, And then, of course, if you want to compete in the VHRC, which is our versatility competition, please apply to compete in that. And then, of course, the Breed Bonanza, which is our brand new competition, where you can show off your beautiful horse and your beautiful braiding job and really just strut your stuff in the show ring. So all those are due September the 6th.
Very good. And did you just go to the website? Where do they go on the website?
Yeah. So you go to Equine Affaire, and then you select the Massachusetts event, and then you would go to the Participate tab.
Got it.
And then you'll see all that good stuff under either ride-in clinics or competing. And we can put those links in the show notes too.
Very good. Well, Tik Maynard's been a guest on numerous podcasts here on the Horse Radio Network, included Horses in the Morning. But, we're going to talk to him about something a little different today. He began riding in Vancouver, Canada, where he achieved his A in Pony Club, currently lives in Citra, Florida, not too far from me, actually. Of course, everybody knows his wife, Sinead Halpin, and he's the author of In the Middle Are the Horsemen, published in 2018, one of the best books out there for the horse world. He's a 4-star 3-day eventer and has, of course, he won Road to the Horse last year, which is the championship of colt starting. He does a lot of different stuff. He has a couple of kids. We're going to talk about that. And he's going to be at Equine Affaire in Massachusetts doing some things that we'll talk about as well. Let's meet Tik.
Well, hi, Tik. Welcome to our show.
Hi, Allison. Hi, Glenn. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad that you were able to come on, and I've been looking forward to this. We tried to get you on back in July, and we had to reschedule, and now it's finally August, and Tik is here, so I'm happy.
Well, it takes a little bit to get everybody's schedule to match up, and it's not just mine now, but I've got 2 little kids, so I got to work around their schedules as well. Yeah.
How old are your kids?
Violet is 2, and her nickname is Goldfish, and Brooks is 5, so a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oh my gosh, you got your hands full. I have an almost 3-year-old, and she runs the house, and she runs me ragged. So
yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
geez.
It's a lot.
That is a lot. And so and then of course you're married to your rock star wife, and she's busy too. So you guys are just constantly running.
Yeah. And she's actually, some people sort of take a step back from competing when they have kids. And she's sort of done the opposite. She's sort of doubled down and is working out and eating better than she's ever eaten, and taking regular lessons, and just got a new horse from Europe, and is managing like a very successful syndicate for some horses we have, and is more motivated than ever. So she's pretty busy as well.
Tik, do eventers ever take a step back for anything? When you think about it, I mean...
I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, I didn't really think about that.
Look, they break every bone in their body and they're back on the horse in a week. So, yeah, I mean...
Just tape it up.
Yeah,
it'll be
exactly.
fine.
Yes.
So I think that's awesome. I mean, wow, I knew from reading her bio what a strong, determined lady she had to be, but then bouncing back from having 2 kids and like getting all the way back into it. I mean, that's kudos to her. And then what do you think what do your kids think about what mom and dad do?
I don't think they really, take it in. They're both in the local Montessori school. So Monday to Friday, they're there. And on the weekends, if we're not competing, we try to hang out with them. But we're not really doing horse stuff. Even when we're at a horse show, if we're with them, we're going to the creek or the lake or the beach or for a hike in the woods. Brooks is really interested in turtles and snakes and reptiles and Goldfish is interested in the dog and in coloring and stuff. So we don't do a lot of horse stuff with them.
Oh, well, it'll come eventually, or maybe not. Maybe they'll just be like, horses, old hat. Mom and dad, they do that. We do turtles and a turtle rodeo.
I don't know. Yeah, it seems like some kids just have this sort of gene for horses, and some kids don't. Some kids, you see them right from the time that they're 5 years old or younger that they're into it. So I don't know. I don't think it really is going to bother Sinead or I one way or the other if they're into horses or not. We just want them to have some kind of passion. I'd love to see them kind of get interested in something.
Absolutely. That's how my husband and I feel about our daughter. It's like we just want her to find what she's passionate about. Doesn't matter if it's not horses, if it's not video, because my husband's a video guy, whatever it is, just go after it, do what you want to do. So it's cool.
I just kind of like pray secretly that it's something that I have at least a passing interest for, like if he gets really into video games, it's going to be a little harder for me to be supportive than if he's into something that I'm also interested in.
They're going to be into dance, and you're going to have to go to dance competitions that last like an entire 3 days in a row.
Did you see they have hip hop in the Olympics now?
Yeah, that ain't the kind of dance I was thinking about.
Oh,
You're not going to get that lucky. You're going to get
they have hip hop like you mean that people are competing in hip hop in the Olympics?
Breakdancing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So
breakdancing.
Wow. Okay. So maybe that should be, Tik, before you got on, Glenn and I were talking about how you used to compete in pentathlon. And now in the Olympics, they're going to replace show jumping with obstacle course racing next time.
Yeah.
Maybe it should be hip hop though.
maybe it should be breakdancing. Maybe that's when I could make my comeback. Because,
there you go.
When I'm getting the kids up for school in the morning, we do tend to put on a little music and I kind of dance as I get them ready for school.
There you go. Good. Perfect.
Yep.
I don't know if the public is ready for that. So, yeah.
How do you feel about them? How do you feel about the show jumping going away? The horses going? They were looking for an excuse, obviously, to do it, and they just got one. But how do you feel about it?
I think in pentathlon, in Canada where I was competing, most of the athletes that get into pentathlon come from a show jumping background or like a pony club background or something like that. And so I think it's a shame for the countries like that where they actually got into the sport because of horses. But when you compete in that sport on an international level, most of the athletes from most of the countries, the riding is sort of the least important to them. They come from a swimming background or a running background or a fencing background. And I think when that's the case, horses end up sort of being more just like a tool, like an ATV, like it's just something that they sort of have to do the sport. And so I think because of that, I think it was the right decision to make. I think it's a shame for some people, but in the end, I think, they made the best of a tough choice. Do
you find yourself still watching it at the Olympics?
Yeah, I still watch the Olympics. There's a lot of sports that I'm not in particular modern pentathlon, although I would watch it if I happen to be seeing it. But a lot of the sports I like to watch, whether it's Simone Biles, the floor routine was like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, or basketball, or I just watched the 1500 in track and field, watched women's pole vault. And these moments where you see people that get so present and so into the zone, no matter what sport they're doing, when you can see that kind of look come across somebody, it's just absolutely incredible to me.
Well, it is. And, I spend so much time watching horse competitions and thinking about the horses that when I catch a glimpse of human sports in the Olympics, I go, wow, we can do some pretty cool stuff. Like Simone Biles, absolutely just mind-blowing. I watched a couple of her floor routines and I was like, how does she do that? And the pole vaulting too. It's just like, are we the same species? I couldn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, Simone Biles just was dominant. There's a floor routine that I saw where she took an extra step back that she wasn't supposed to. And she was just so confident and so present that she, instead of being upset like a lot of people would be, she sort of just smiled and shrugged and kept going. Like, she just knew that she was so good and so dominant and performing so well that a little mistake didn't matter to her. And that's like a little lesson, I think, with horses, that if we're really well prepared and something doesn't go well, you don't want to let it ruin your day. You want to kind of shrug and just keep going.
Well, you work a lot on anxious riders and nervous riders and things like that. And, with her situation, obviously, she went through a lot of crap mentally and yet came back. And that just shows that can happen too, right? You can have a complete meltdown and still come back.
Yeah. I think humans are one of the most, how resilient we are and able to, live in anywhere in the world and do almost anything, and the range of stuff we can do from pole vaulting to basketball to fencing to swimming. It's just incredible. All these things we can do. And I actually think, looking at some of the social media stuff, the biggest disappointment to me was how tough people can be on other people, instead of understanding and forgiving. That was probably the only disappointment that I've had so far in this Olympics is people that can get negative about stuff rather than, there's so many critics in the world already. I'd like to see more encourgement.
And all of them 100%. Are sitting on their couch and haven't run a mile in 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's the armchair quarterback. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously we have our own issues in the horse world that we're dealing with now too, and it's just something that we have to deal with as a group so that horses stay around, especially in the Olympics.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a very tough thing to navigate that I certainly don't have the answers for, which is that, if we start going down a path too far where, we're not going to have people even riding horses and eventually maybe not even owning horses, which I think would be a shame. But on the other hand, there's a lot of stuff you don't want to condone either. And I think finding that middle ground is going to take a lot of rational, smart, middle of the road thinkers and not emotional, polarizing points of view. So I think that's going to be a very tough thing to navigate.
And isn't that true of the world too, when you think about it as a whole?
Probably. Yeah. Like a lot of things in politics. Yeah.
It's true. Now, you're going to be presenting coming up at Equine Affaire in November. What are you going to be doing there?
Well, we got a few things lined up. We've got a couple group lessons where I'll be teaching. I'm going to be working with a few horses individually. One of the topics I'm going to be talking about is just what I do when I first get a horse I don't know, whether it's for an hour or whether somebody sends me a horse in training for a month or 6 months, and how I sort of evaluate that, what I'm looking for. And it's something that I think about a lot. So that's going to be one of the most interesting sessions for me. In particular, doing Road to the Horse has forced me to really think about that a lot as well, because in that situation, you've got one day to sort of look at these horses and pick which one you want to work with. And then you only have 3 days to work with that horse. So your ability to sort of get to know that horse very quickly and evaluate them and have them get to know you has to happen very, very quickly. And
so what is a tip that someone, like our listeners at home, what is a takeaway tip that you could give them to, is there like an exercise? Is there do you do a grooming session first? Like, what is it that you do when you get that first strange horse? And we'll say for easiness sake that it's a broke horse, one that not an untrained horse, but a horse that knows its job, but this is your first time meeting them.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is when we, but let me back up a second, just have you guys think, what are the 3 most commonly trained animals in the United States? They're probably dogs, horses, and kids, humans, right? Whether it's kids in school or kids in
I wasn't thinking kids. I was thinking it's not cats, but I didn't put kids in there. So
I thought cat.
And maybe cats, but I don't know. There's some good cat trainers out there. But for all 3 of those animals, dogs, horses, and kids, we have to have 0 qualifications. Like, anybody can buy a horse. Anybody can go to the puppy mill and buy a puppy. Before Sinead and I had Brooks, our first kid, neither of us had ever held an infant before in our entire lives. You just kind of get.
Is that home. True? No babysitting, none of that.
I had never changed a diapper before I had my daughter.
Yeah. So we're going into this, like with these animals, like a lot of times with very little understanding of how they learn, how to read them. If you look at other animals, if you wanted to work with sea mammals, like in an aquarium, or you wanted to work with chimpanzees in a lab, the amount of education you would have to have first would probably be, my guess, at least 2 years, if not more than that, before you'd even be allowed to start handling or training or being in the same space with that animal. And so for me, the biggest part is just trying to get good at reading them and understanding them before you even start thinking about training them. You go in there and you just spend a few minutes observing them. Like, are they anxious today? Are they excited today? Are they nervous? Are they wanting to be with me? Or are they wanting to be away from me? And you just take a few moments to kind of like think about it before you just immediately swing your leg over and get going.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's true with kids too, right? You got to go, okay, what are you feeling like today?
Yeah.
Before you try to attempt something dangerous, like, brushing their teeth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not all about us. We can't go on our timeline all the time.
Oh, say that again. Yeah, that's so true. Because that's something I've had to learn. I've had to learn that with parenting. You would think, having had a few horses, I would have learned it from owning horses, working with horses, but I really apparently did not absorb it until I had my little girl. And then I was like, you know what? You may have to go to work at 8:30, but she doesn't care.
Yeah.
So I think, being aware that your timeline no longer matters when you're working with horses or kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And, as the relationship develops, there'll be compromise where sometimes your timeline matters more and sometimes their timeline matters more. But I think picking things you can compromise on rather than things you're going to be disciplined about, I think is an important part of it.
I think that's a really important point. And I think we do that every day with people too, like with other adults. We figure out, what are we going to compromise on today?
If you want to stay married for more than 7 years, yes.
Yes.
Marriage. Good point, Glenn.
Marriage is a big one for sure. A lot of compromise.
How long have you and Sinead been married?
We got married in 2014 in January.
I thought it was around then. Yeah, I thought it was. So you got you're 10 years then?
Yeah. Yeah, 10 years. And before we got married, I remember talking to this guy around a campfire at a fun in Middleburg, Virginia. And he'd been married. He was in his, I think, late 70s, and he'd been married for close to 50 years. I remembered asking him what the secret to a long marriage was. And he said, we made this agreement before we got married that I, as the man, would make all the big decisions going forward, and her, as the woman, would make all the little decisions. And he goes, it's been 48 years, and we've never once had to make a big decision.
Took me a minute. I love that. That needs to be on a t-shirt.
So learning to read the horse, that's the first thing. Figure out, what is this horse feeling like today? What are they interested in being with me, or do they just want to go eat? Basically, that's your first tip there. Yeah,
exactly. And to kind of meet them where they're at, to really get a horse on board with you, there's got to be a bit of a feeling of a relationship or friendship or a partnership or whatever you want to call it. And, sometimes if I want to go fast and they want to go slow, sometimes I'll kind of realize that and I'll go, oh, well, I'm not in a hurry, actually. Like I'm not on a timeline. I can go slow for a little bit till we get on the same page, and then we'll speed up a bit. Or maybe I'm on an anxious horse and I'm wanting to halt, but they're wanting to go a little faster. Then I'll be like, okay, that's fine. Why don't, I'm not competing today. I don't really have anything coming up. Why not go a little faster? Or they want to eat grass. It's like, why not eat a little grass? And then you get on the same page. And then gradually you can start to shift it to sometimes being on their page and sometimes being on your page. But it doesn't always have to be what you want to do.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up working with the anxious horse. So I know that one of your other clinics is going to be working with those scared, anxious, nervous horses. So how can we be better partners to, let's say we have a really spooky horse? Is it kind of the same thing of like learning to read them, or how do you reassure them? What are some tips for our listeners on working with that really scaredy horse?
The first thing is that with a really scared horse, it can be quite, with a lot of those horses, really anxious or really scared horses, it can be quite an advanced thing. And for somebody that might be new to horses or it's their first horse, sometimes, it might just be a situation where it's out of their league. And I think that's an important thing to recognize as well, which is when to sort of get a trainer more involved to get help. For me, the big thing is trying to, I think most horses are not anxious with people because like they feel like somebody's going to beat them. I think mostly horses are anxious around people because they're confused. And I think so then the important part is how do you make them less confused? And you develop a language. You'll be able to say, if I say this, can you understand what I mean? Can you back up or can you go sideways? Because horses are so motivated and so easily motivated by stress that so many horses just start, you can create movement in a horse just by having stress. And then you can steer that stress around. You can walk, trot, canter, trail load, do a dressage test without the horse really understanding anything. All you're doing is sort of steering that stress around. And I think to really get rid of that, you've got to be able to develop a clear language where you can just say something softly and easily and they understand that.
Well, and not to bring it back to kids again, but that's totally true with kids too.
Yeah. They just want to understand often.
Yeah. They don't want to be like confusion leads to stress, leads to the dark side, to quote Star Wars. But, I think clearing things up and getting to where you can communicate, whether it's with a kid, whether it's with a horse, whether it's with a dog, that they feel heard and that you're being heard. That really is kind of one of the foundational blocks there of working with anything, but especially with horses, because they can't speak English. I wish they could, but...
Yeah, and I think there's a very difficult line where sometimes when we try to be too kind, we end up being not clear.
Yes.
And some people struggle with that more with dogs, some people more with kids, some people more with other people, some people more with horses. Definitely Sinead is much better with the kids about being clear than I am. And by that, I mean having boundaries that are consistent. If I take Brooks and sometimes I let him, take candy off the aisle after he whines, and sometimes I don't, then all of a sudden that boundary isn't clear and he's not old enough to really understand the difference. Whereas if you just always have the same clear boundary and sort of yes means yes and no means no, then they're actually, both the kids are actually much quieter and more sort of peaceful when they're with Sinead. And I really, that's a big part of what I'm trying to do now as a dad, is trying to find a way to still be fun and cool and kind and yet have these clear boundaries that offers them a little bit more peace.
You just described my husband and my parenting is he's the one who's more consistent. He's the one who's like, yes, yes, no, no. And I'm the one that's like, okay, well, maybe later. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's hard because you don't want to do that. Like, I mean, it's so much easier to say yes to kids than to no, at least for me. Like, you just want to say yes to everything. And in the long run, that's not super helpful, I don't think, but it's like you want to do it. It's so easy and it's so fun to just say yes.
It is. It's really fun to say yes. But I guess learning to say no makes the yes even more fun. So we just have to learn to do that. Well, thank you so much. This has been an awesome conversation, and I can't wait to see these clinics that you're going to put on at Equine Affaire en masse. I think they're going to be really helpful for a lot of people.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I think they put on one of the best events of the year, probably anywhere in the world. And I've been there 2 or 3 times before, and I've always had a really good time. And, one of the things I like best as well is not just going, to shop or to do my own thing, but to go and watch the other presenters and what they're doing. And I think there's going to be some good presenters this year, so I'm looking forward to watching that.
Oh yeah, we have a great class, and I'm really excited about it too. So thank you. This was awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Remember, there are plenty of ways to get involved with Equine Affaire. If you don't want to ride or compete, we are still looking for volunteers for our events, so you can have a really good time, work for a few hours, and then get free tickets to Equine Affaire. I mean, sounds like a pretty good deal to me. So if you would like to volunteer at Equine Affaire, you can go to our website, or you can ask me in the auditors group if you want, and I'll give you the link there. And we're accepting those applications until September 26th. And if you do want to ride or compete, You can apply to ride with a professional, including clinicians like Tik and Barbra. You can apply to compete in the Versatile Horse and Rider competition or in the Breed Bonanza. And all those applications are due by September the 6th. So just a couple of weeks. So get your stuff together, get your videos together and your written applications and your pictures and apply. And hopefully we'll see you at Equine Affaire.
Well, next up is Barbra Schulte. We're heading to the Western legend side. She's a high-performance coach, a cutting horse trainer, clinician, and speaker. And as a national cutting horse competitor, she was the first woman to win 2 legs of the cutting's Triple Crown. She is the CEO of Center for Equestrian Performance and lives in Texas, where we chat with her today.
Well, hi, Barb. Welcome to our show. You've been here many times, but this is your first time on the Equine Affaire podcast. So welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm excited. I'm a Horse Radio Network fan and am grateful that I've been able to be with you all and in the past and especially today. So thank you for inviting me.
I feel like I have heard about you, all good things, for years and years and years. Basically,
I didn't
my
tell
whole
her
career.
the bad ones, Barb. I left those out. Okay.
I was going to say, making me a little nervous. Allison, making me a little nervous.
It's been all good things about Barbra. So I feel like you're sort of a pillar of the Western community. I mean, you've done so much and continue to do so much. And so I was really excited when I heard that you were going to be one of our clinicians this fall in Massachusetts. And I wanted to ask you, how many times have you presented at Equine Affaire? Do you know?
Boy, that's an interesting question. I don't know, but if I was guessing, I'd say over the years, 6 or 7, have always admired how Equine Affaire does business, the quality of everything that they do, and the way they communicate with clinicians and take care of us, and the atmosphere that's there. It's just a real quality thing. And so I'm really delighted to be back.
Well, we're excited to have you. And you're based in Texas, right? So you'll be doing a long flight for us to get to Mass, but we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I live in Brenham, Texas, which is right smack in the middle between Houston and Austin.
Yeah, I saw on your website you have so much great content aimed at really at riders, at talking about all things to do with performance and with horsemanship. And I think that that's really, really cool and really needed. I think that someone like you who has competed at the top can now teach others and kind of dive into that. And I think that that's what makes Equine Affaire so cool, is that we can pull people like you in to talk to people in different parts of the country about everything you've observed and learned over the years. And I just know you're a wealth of information about cutting, because clearly your whole career, I think that's just amazing. So something I wanted to ask you about with regard to your presentations at Equine Affaire is particularly the one that you're going to do on connection and feel. And even in the title, you say, feel is not easily taught, but you can develop clear communication. And I loved that, because so often I see people say, you either have feel or you don't have feel. You can't learn feel. And it's really kind of a discouraging statement. So I wanted to ask you,
forever.
Yeah. Well, how do you, first of all, how do you define feel? And then if you could talk about how you can help people kind of learn that, or how you can help them get in touch with that.
Well, that's a big topic, but it's one of my favorites. And I really don't agree with people when they say that you can't teach feel, because I just think there is a very, very definite sequence of things that you can do, and I'll explain that in just a moment. And it has to do with our central nervous system. It has to do with taking the time to do it and to develop the skills just like any other skill. And it also has to do with how we view horses and how we view connection. To me, connection is a relationship. And so the first thing is that if we view horses as friends, but it's like, I'm your boss and you will be doing this, but I want to see if I can get you to do this, kind of a transaction. I think that approach, which is common, and I'm not trying to be condescending or anything about that. I'm just saying that that is very blocking for someone, especially who's beginning to ride, or, you know, wherever they are in their journey, because it becomes all about what I can get a horse to do, not about really having this sense of, I understand how a horse feels. If I'm consistent, how a horse feels my body, and that I need to be, in order for us to develop this communication of, I ask in a certain way and they respond, and then I feel with my body through my legs and my feet and their gait and those kinds of things. I can feel it before almost it happens, and that takes experience. Then there's this seamless communication that goes back and forth, and when it's built on trust, and a horse knows that when they get the response correct, that we release them, then as we learn those things and how to do it, it's just a matter of time and experience. And it still takes time, and it still takes experience. But boy, it can be, so much of it can be taught. And it really starts with someone being in a very present parasympathetic nervous system state, where you're really grounded and connected to your own body. In other words, you feel your seat in the saddle. You feel your legs softly at a horse's side. Your eyes are up. You feel a horse move your body. And that just takes tuning into. And then with time, that becomes our manner of information. We get out of our head, not entirely, but feel is really so much our body feels the horse, and the horse feels us, and we exchange information that way.
So it's sort of like recognizing that every part of you communicates. It's your feet, it's your legs, it's your seat, it's your hands, it's your eye position, it's the way you turn your head. All of that is a communication system with the horse. And so with people, we know about body language, but it's such, the way I move my hand or the way I move my foot doesn't communicate something to a person really, but it does to other horses. So it's kind of getting into that horse language and recognizing that you're communicating at all times when you're on that horse, and they're communicating back to you.
It's interesting because we had Tik Maynard on earlier, Barb, and we talked a lot about how all of this stuff also applies to your kids, to your wife, to your family. It just applies across the board, and everything you're saying is that way too.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things of communication is the flip side of expressing ourselves. It's the listening. After or as I have learned more to listen to a horse, or if I'm wanting to present something in a certain way, first of all, listening and sensing their nervous system state and doing whatever I can so that they're relaxed and focused. That as we get in, from the moment I encounter them, when they know that I know that they're, let's say that they all of a sudden put their head up and their ears up and flare their nostrils, and we don't see anything. If we just acknowledge, oh, I see that you're concern. This is a lot of Warwick Schiller's work, and he's just done a masterful job of this. But noticing horses that they're concerned about anything it gives them a lot of trust. And even sitting on a horse's back, if they like look way to the left, if we just look way to the left with them, they know that we notice that they look to the left. And that really opens doors of trust because they know that we're listening. It's just like with anybody that you're with and you're wanting to visit with them, but you know that they're not listening. Why? It just really stops the authentic exchange. So listening along with effective expression is so important. After I stopped training professionally, that I really began a journey of so many other things. And just that whole idea of being present and listening and noticing, just with my husband, it made it a huge difference, to like not just ever, if he says something, I just try. I can't say I never do, but I try really hard to acknowledge, I heard you. He has this is just a little aside. He has a saying when we're talking, when he doesn't agree with me, that he goes, "You might be right," meaning, I think you're wrong. and so when he says that, I say, "Don't you ever say that to me again," because that is code. That is code for you have not heard or considered what I said. Anyway, it's a funny thing.
Right.
Well, Barb, you might be right. I'm not sure.
You might be right.
Exactly.
So what it comes down to is get off of your phone if you're riding a horse or if you're talking to someone and actually listen and respond to what they're saying.
Yes, whether it's your horse or a friend or, whatever it is. And anyway, it's really good stuff.
I'm so looking forward to hearing more about all of that at Equine Affaire in Massachusetts. And we would just really appreciate you coming on the show today and taking the time. So thank you, Barb. It's been amazing.
I look forward to it, and I look forward to seeing both of you. And I appreciate you having me on the show.
Well, have you downloaded the Western Edge app yet? Western Edge is your gateway into the Equine Affaire mobile app. You can buy tickets, review the schedule, see the event map, play fun games, and win fun prizes, all with the tap of a finger on your phone. This has been many years in coming. I'm so glad this is here. Keep Equine Affaire in your pocket this fall by downloading the Western Edge app for iPhone and Android. I'll tell you what, you guys put out the best catalog for the show, which has the maps and, the directions to all the booths and stuff, but I always lose it. I always leave it somewhere and I don't have it. So this is perfect. That'll all be on the app. I can find my way to whatever booth.
Yes, we will put the program in the app.
Yay.
And thank you, by the way. The program is my baby.
Well,
so
it is great, but I always set it down at a booth and then I lose it and then I don't have it. So I'm glad that there's going to be an app with all of that. Thank you.
Next Ohio, I'm going to punch a hole in yours and put a chain on it, and then it'll be on your belt, and then you can't lose it.
I must have lost 4 of them this last time. I kept getting new ones, and they kept losing them.
I do that too, but I end up giving them away because, I'm always walking around with a stack of them, and then somebody's like, "Oh, do you have a program?" And I'm like, "Yes, please go ahead." But then I don't have one, and then I'm like, "Shoot."
Well, my recording equipment, I'm carrying that around, and when I go to record at a booth, I set everything down. So I can't tell you how many water bottles I go through in a day because I leave those at booths too. It's just, I'm consistent.
100%.
I've been doing it forever, so I'm very consistent. It's like, So anyway, you can learn more about Equine Affair at the website, equineaffaire.com, or on Facebook or the YouTube channel. And of course, you can find out more about Horses in the Morning on Facebook. Just search for Horses in the Morning. We're over there. You can find all the past episodes and all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com. And don't forget, Equine Affair has their own RSS feed. So you can search for, is it Equine Affair Podcast on your podcast player, and that'll just bring up these episodes. So if you don't want to hear all the other stuff that we do over in Horses in the Morning, you can just follow Equine Affair, and it has all the past episodes too. So search for that, the Equine Affair Podcast, on your podcast player. Thanks, Allison.
Thank you, Glenn. This was awesome, and we will see you all at Equine Affair.